Chosen one, I understand you. Stop and listen carefully to this information. If you can endure it, if you can overcome it, you can succeed. It all begins when you feel completely exhausted, ready to throw another punch. Leave a like below the video. We're starting. Sometimes you feel exhausted before the day is over. You haven't done anything. You haven't had a heavy workload. But when evening comes, you feel like you haven't slept for weeks. You lie down in bed, close your eyes, and thoughts come. It's not even clear what they're about. There's just a weight on your chest, on your shoulders. And when you wake up in the morning, that weight is still there. If you've experienced this not just once, but many times, you've probably told yourself things like, "I'm thinking too much," or "I'm going through a tough time lately." But time passes, the fatigue doesn't. And at this point, most people attribute it to their nature. Weak, irritable, sensitive, maybe a little too active. But psychology says something very different about this. Some people feel the emotions of others almost as if they were their own. This isn't an exaggeration. It's a neurobiologically documented fact. When you see someone else's pain, structures in your brain called mirror neurons fire as if you were experiencing that pain yourself. In most people, this response remains measured. However, in some individuals, this system operates with a much higher sensitivity. When these people enter a room, they read the atmosphere. They sense whether someone's smile is genuine. They hear things that are not said. This is often called empathy, but lately the word seems to have lost its meaning. Everyone defines empathy as if it were a natural foundation. Yet, what is being discussed here is a completely different intensity. It's not about someone's problem affecting you, but about someone's problem manifesting itself in your body. The difference is enormous. Someone who grows up with this sensitivity develops a kind of responsibility towards the people around them from a young age. They are the first to sense tension in the family. They are the one who notices that someone is sad before they express it. Over the years, they unconsciously develop the ability to comfort those around them. This ability becomes so internalized that, at a certain point, the needs of others outweigh one's own. And this isn't a flaw. These are ways of connecting with the world. But there's a price to pay. A system that constantly carries the emotional burden of others eventually begins to exceed its own capacity. In psychology, this is called emotional exhaustion or loss of empathy. It's crucial to note that this isn't something only hard-working people experience. It can happen even on a calm day without doing anything concrete. Because the burden here is invisible. It doesn't consist of decisions not made in meetings, but of silent tensions that are noticed and internalized. Research shows that individuals with high empathy can exhibit signs of anxiety even in low arousal states. Even if everything around them is calm, the emotional information they've accumulated continues to be processed in the background. Their brains literally work harder. That's why two people experiencing the same day can go to bed at night with very different levels of fatigue. When you understand this, everything falls into place, because this is an answer to someone who has been asking for years, why am I so affected while others aren't? And this answer isn't because you're weak, quite the opposite. Now consider this. What will someone who grows up with this structure, with this sensitivity, experience over time? A system that is constantly open to its environment also detects danger early. The brain senses signs of betrayal, breaking points in relationships, and moments when people are not being sincere. It usually detects these things before they happen. And this is not magic. It is a pattern recognition process based on years of accumulated social knowledge. The brain does this by breaking it down into parts through an unconscious process. You say, something is wrong. Those around you say, no, everything is normal. And then something really is wrong. Someone who has experienced this many times learns to doubt themselves over time because they frequently clash with their environment. Under the pressure of, I'm thinking too much, I'm exaggerating, they learn to suppress their true intuition. And this is perhaps one of the greatest harms this sensitivity creates. Silencing a powerful capacity for perception disconnects a person from their most reliable sources. So how do these people survive? How do they endure? Because most of them experience so much with this burden: betrayal, loss, misunderstanding, exclusion. And yet, somehow they continue. Psychology gives this a name: post-traumatic growth. But this concept is very often misrepresented, as if you automatically become stronger after suffering. No, that's not the case. Post-traumatic growth stems not from the pain itself, but from the process of coping with the pain. When a person is on the verge of collapse and somehow manages to hold on, they learn something in that process of holding on. Their own limits, what really matters, which people stay, and perhaps most importantly, who they are and who they are not. Over time, something interesting happens in the behavior of someone who has experienced this. Their tolerance for drama and superficial relationships diminishes. They gravitate towards louder things. They seek something deeper, quieter, more real. This isn't old age. It's an enlightenment. Under stress, the brain lets go of what it deems unnecessary and realigns itself toward what truly works. Neuroscience explains this transformation as follows. A brain that has been exposed to chronic stress and has recovered undergoes significant changes in its perception of threat. It restructures itself to survive. And during this restructuring, old response patterns gradually give way to more resilient structures. So what breaks you actually changes you. But this change is conditional. It happens not only when you are broken, but also when you process the break. Most people are left with the question at this point: why have I lived so long? Why do some people's lives go relatively smoothly, while others carry much heavier burdens? Obviously, there is no satisfying answer to this. But psychology says that people with high sensitivity process events more deeply, and therefore experience both pain and growth more intensely. The same system reinforces both. I didn't say this to console you, but it's worth noting that someone who has lived a lot becomes someone who knows a lot over time, not just in terms of knowledge, but also in terms of experience. When that person goes to someone else's pain, they are truly there, because they know a way to reach there. This isn't ordinary empathy. This is an understanding gained through lived experience. But there's something else, and this is perhaps the least discussed thing. Some identities developed for survival persist even after the danger has passed. In psychology, this is called the survival identity. Constantly appearing strong, remaining silent, not taking up space, downplaying one's own needs. These worked for a while. Perhaps there were no other options then. But when that period ends, these strategies are still in play. And this point is very critical. Because someone who lives with a survival identity for a long time eventually begins to believe that this identity is their true self. I'm already like this. I don't show my emotions. I don't need things. I don't become dependent. But these aren't choices, they're conditioning. Someone taught you that you're safe within these patterns, and you learned it. It's not a weakness, it's an adaptation mechanism. But when the adaptation mechanism is confused with the true identity, the person becomes alienated from themselves. Why is it so difficult to recognize this? Because survival patterns often appear strong. Suppressing emotions feels like control. Not needing things gives a feeling of independence. Not taking up space gives a feeling of humility. It takes time to understand that these aren't empty words. Sometimes until you understand a relationship, sometimes until you lose something, and sometimes just until you're tired. And sometimes, tiredness is the most honest moment. The issue of the true self is quite a controversial topic in psychology. Some theorists deny the existence of a fixed, true self. But most people know this. Sometimes you felt exactly like yourself. Maybe outside the crowd, maybe next to someone, maybe on a lonely morning walk. There was a lightness in those moments. It didn't require defense. You just existed. This feeling is no longer theoretical, because it has been experienced. Over the years, researchers have found that these exactly like myself moments are not random. They usually occur in safe environments, when you are not judged, when you don't have to perform consciously or unconsciously. So the true self is not a matter of discovery, perhaps a matter of opening up. When the conditions are right, something that already exists begins to spontaneously emerge. And the most interesting part is this. When a person begins to relinquish their survival identity, it may seem strange from the outside. They used to be quiet. Now they talk. They used to not set boundaries. Now they start to. They used to adapt. Now they don't. Those around you are asking, what happened to you? But what's actually happening is simple. The threat has disappeared, and the system is starting to come out of protection mode. This isn't a character change. This is a reversal. Finally, it's important to say this. None of what I've described will transform you directly. Watching a video won't transform you. Reading a book won't transform you. But awareness is the prerequisite for transformation. You can't change something without seeing it. And sometimes, all it takes to see something is for someone to say, "This has a name. You're not alone." Maybe today, you see the source of that weariness more clearly. Maybe you've noticed some patterns you've developed to survive. Maybe you feel you're getting a little closer to your true self. That lightness, that's a good enough start. Because some things don't change suddenly. They emerge layer by layer over time. And the most important thing in this enlightenment process is finally seeing how much weight you're carrying, how many years you've been carrying it. Just seeing that will lighten the load a little. Friends, if this information was truly helpful to you, please subscribe to our channel and write "I am chosen" in the comments. Thank you.